Hello, hello. Olá. Tenham todos aqui no Brasil uma boa noite. Carol na Flórida, Jon in New York. Hi, everyone. Olá, todo mundo. Estamos aqui mais um dia. É um prazer ter Carol aqui com a gente. Uma brasileirinha que mora lá, United States. And Jon, it's a big pleasure to be here. It's an honor to me. I follow your work a long time. And thank you so much. Natanael, obrigado. Estamos aqui juntos mais um domingo.
Mais uma vez.
Mais uma vez. Só para nos localizarmos aqui, Carol está na Flórida, right? Jon lives in New York.
Correct.
Correct. Jon mora em Nova York. Natanael está em Recife.
Na minha rede.
No Light. E eu estou no Rio de Janeiro. Então, the internet, it's magic. We all together now. A internet é mágica. Estamos todos juntos aqui. A Carol, como é uma brasileirinha, a Retada vai me ajudar na tradução hoje. Hoje o palco é dela.
Obrigada.
Estou cansado de traduzir. Obrigado. So Jon, Carol translate to us. So thank you again, and we can beginning with. Eu gostaria de começar com Jon. I have a surprise. I can show you later on the background. I remember Jon on this little piece of book. Little piece? No, it's a big piece. Yeah, eu lembro do Jon nesse livro.
Yes.
Yeah, eu acompanho.
It's like the
Jon
Pilates Bible. Yeah.
Yeah. Eu não sei nem se eu posso mostrar esse livro aqui na internet, se vai ter alguma coisa de direitos autorais, mas I think you don't have problem about the copyright, okay? Please, Cat. Apologize, yeah. So
We won't reveal all the secrets.
Você divulga o livro, onde vende, aí pode, entendeu?
I make a marketing for the book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Eu lembro do Jon nesse livro porque o Jon tem muitas fotos aqui com ele. Jon, I have this. I can show you. Jon. Right? It's a great book, amazing book. É um grande livro, um livro sobre muita experiência de trabalho e tudo mais. Carol, você pergunta ao Jon para mim sobre essa vivência dele em que ele estudou com a Cat e estudou com o Jay.
Uhum.
Se ele, é lógico, cada professor tem o seu estilo de trabalho, né? Apesar que o método ele é uma coisa só, mas cada professor acaba tendo o seu estilo. E se ele consegue enxergar uma diferença assim, entre a Cat e o Jay na forma de trabalhar, ok?
Okay. So Fernando was very happy to get to know you by the book from Kathy Ross, as you said, the Bible. And he's asking, since you've learned Pilates with Kathy and also with Jay Grimes, do you see the difference from the work from each of one of them? Even the Pilates method, it is one thing, but every teacher, they have their own ways to teach Pilates. What do you talk about that?
Yeah. Oh, God. Well, one thing for me that really, I think, unites the two of them is they get people to move. Yeah. They get people to move, and that's such a gift in the work of all of us as Pilates teachers that sometimes I think can get caught in micromanaging the work. One thing that I believe was handed down to Kathy from Ramana, that Kathy really impressed upon us as students, and it's important to have those moments to tinker, like a watchmaker, maybe one day a week, perhaps in your program of workouts. But then there needs to be at least 1 day or 2 days where you just go about the work like a quarryman, bashing rocks and pounding through. One more thing I'll say, and then I'll let Carolina translate, is that Jay talked about when you're building a sculpture, right? And Joe Pilates was very into Greco-Roman sculpture. You don't start by building eyelashes on a huge slab of marble. You take a sledgehammer and start smashing at it to make things, and then you can start refining. So I think the gift of movement and truly being able to go at it, to build that strength and trusting in the work as opposed to interfering and having to micromanage and puppeteer. So that was a lot, Carolina. Let me pass that off to you.
Então, ele disse que o que eles têm muito em comum, tanto a Kathleen quanto o Jay, é a habilidade de fazer o estudante se movimentar. Eles trabalham com o movimento em si. Então, é claro que tem um dia na semana que talvez a Kathleen fosse fazer um trabalho mais detalhado, né, igual a gente vê no livro dela, né, tem várias formas de fazer um 100, roll-up, tem instruções, mas que, na verdade, o trabalho em si é acreditar no trabalho, no método, e ensiná-lo de uma forma com que o movimento que vá trazer tudo isso. O Jay trabalha mais como se fosse uma escultura. Ele disse que numa escultura você não vai começar pelos cílios, por exemplo, ou pela sobrancelha, você vai começar pelo corpo em si, né, pelo tronco do corpo. Então é assim que ele trabalha, mais da parte do meio, né, para fora, assim, com os detalhes.
Okay, right. The movement is the
movement
is the big answer, maybe.
Exactly. It's moving based exercise. I think rarely, I mean, maybe there's a moment or two that we can nitpick out of the work where we just freeze. We're moving. You move through. It's, you know, Joe was looking at animals and cats and things when he was younger and seeing what they were all doing with their body without, you know, the baggage that we put upon ourselves as humans, where, oh, I have a bad shoulder and I can't move it. No, the cat says, and keeps walking around.
Yeah.
So yes, the commonality of the movement. But I think that, you know, I feel very fortunate to have studied with both of them because they do have their individual voices that are very unique to the work. We'll start with Jay, as he is closest to the source of Pilates. I mean, he is really, I think so many other friends have said, and I believe I'd had this conversation with Kathy too, about him being just grassroots Pilates. He's teaching the source. He's trying to bring it through that filter of what would Joe do? Maybe, right? WWJD, but Joe. And there's so much poignancy there. When you strip down all the other pieces of the puzzle, you're left with nothing but the work. Carolina, do you want to translate that?
Yeah. So, primeiro ele estava falando que o Joseph assistia o movimento dos animais, então ele não pensava em interferir, né, nos movimentos. Então, como ele ensina, né, é de uma forma assim, sem pensar na bagagem. Os animais não têm uma bagagem. Por exemplo, nós temos um problema de ombro, um problema de costas, aí a gente fica trazendo isso para o nosso trabalho. E não, muitas vezes a gente só deve se movimentar. Aí ele começou a falar do Jay, né, que ele acha que é o mais próximo do Joseph, né, em questão de hierarquia, e ele falou que o Jay tenta trabalhar dessa forma, assim, mais tentando ir atrás desse movimento, mas assim, eu acho, I think I lost my track here.
I'm happy to reiterate, Carolina, please, absolutely.
So you were saying about Jay, since he's being closer to the source, you think that he works more like the roots, something like that?
I think he's trying to deliver, as each of our kind of Pilates elders are, the truest version of the Pilates that he was taught by Joe. And we, you know, we see everybody kind of had a different experience. But I think all of us as Pilates teachers know that each person that comes in and works with us has a different experience, but they're still doing Pilates in its true form. So I do love Jay because I feel like in a world of being in New York, which is such the epicenter of Pilates, that you have, you know, flashing signs of this, that, and the other thing. And it's hard because it can get watered down with a lot of other beautiful movements and modalities, yoga, physical therapy, dance, whatever. But I think in any search for for an understanding, it's important to go back to the source. So that's why I really like Jay, because I feel like even though he has experience with dance and so many other things, and he loves them, he tries to keep it out of Pilates, you know, something like the side splits, for instance, on the reformer. He's very insistent, you know, that you keep your hands down and reaching long like Joe would, like a man. In the Romana school, and it's fabulous, it's more of this balletic open arm, because that's what Romana was probably doing on the reformer with Joe, because she was a ballet dancer. So why is she going to do what the boxers are going to do, you know? So anyways, Carolina, flip that.
Então, eu me perdi ali num pedacinho quando eu voltei a falar dos animais, mas agora eu entendi. Ele estava querendo dizer que sim, que ele acha que o Jay é o mais próximo da parte mais pura do Pilates. Desde que ele estudou com o Joseph, estava ali mais perto. Ele não traz, apesar de ele ser dançarino, ele não traz essas outras modalidades pro Pilates. Ele deixa o Pilates mais puro possível, então é como se fossem os braços mais firmes, como o Joseph fazia, mais sólidos. E a Kathy, por exemplo, talvez traga um pouco mais, quer dizer, ele não falou da Kathy, ele falou da Romana. A Romana traz essa parte, né, de bailarina, então fica mais gracioso o trabalho.
And I can say, I mean, the Romana school is amazing. I owe so much to my teachers that came from Romana. Unfortunately, I never had the pleasure to meet Romana. I met her when she was in her urn at St. Patrick's Cathedral. Carolina.
So in her urn means like once
ashes. She had passed away.
Ok. Então, ele acha o trabalho da Romana fabuloso. Infelizmente, ele não teve chances de conhecê-la pessoalmente, ele só acabou indo visitá-la na catedral depois que ela já tinha falecido, onde estão as cinzas dela.
So Jay is, I think, I revere as being the closest connection to the source that I have. You see, I have all these musical instruments behind me. I did my undergraduate studies at university at Baldwin Wallace Conservatory of Music. In learning music, everybody, no matter jazz, music theater, whatever, you have to start at the origins, at classical music, and learn your theory and your technique and what it is at its base. And then from there, you can start to play and add a little sprinkle on top and a flourish that you know will probably make it better or more colored to what your flavor is that you're looking for. But I think that in a course of study, it's very important to start there at the roots. Carolina.
Yes. Então, o John falou que ele é formado originalmente em música, por isso que ele tem os instrumentos atrás dele. Quando ele começou a estudar a música em si, conservatório, é algo assim mais que vem das raízes. Eles começam a aprender mais a forma tradicional, clássica, vamos dizer, e depois, quem sabe, depois de um certo tempo, começa ali colocar algumas flores em cima, uma beleza, uma coisa diferente, né? Então, ele entende que o trabalho do Pilates se associa assim também. Por isso que ele gosta do trabalho do Jay, porque ele se refere como se fosse o mais puro possível que a gente tem hoje em dia em relação ao Joseph.
Yeah, and so I feel very fortunate in having now spent so much intimate time with Jay and with Sandy Shimoda and Karen Frischman and so many others that really stand by his side, not only professionally, but take care of him like daughters, and have learned how to, as Clara Pilates used to say to Jay, juice it out. But now with that depth of understanding, the way that I'm able to look, we lost Carolina.
No problem.
She'll come back.
Okay.
The way that I'm able to look at the work through the lens now with that depth, with the wealth of variations of Romana, is amazing. Fernando, do you want to try and translate that here in Portuguese?
Yeah, you can repeat the
Sure, yeah. I think I was saying that having spent so much time with Jay, really learning how to juice out an exercise like a lemon, right? Squeeze the juice out. And Clara Pilates always used to tell Jay to squeeze the juice out, right? So now with that depth, that layer, that foundation, I feel that I'm able to look at all of this wealth of knowledge from the Romana school with all of the variations and extra layers that Romana really imbibed into the work, that Kathy in that book really spent so much time doing. Yeah. Welcome back, Carolina.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Yeah.
Something happened here.
You keep flights to New York and go back. Thank you. John disse que aprendeu tanto, aprendeu a tirar o máximo do exercício como se espremesse um limão, uma laranja, né? Tirar o suco o máximo possível daquele exercício com Jay, né? In the end, you talk about the foundation, John. What do you say about the foundation?
I'll repeat that and try and clarify a little more. Absolutely. I think having the time spent at Vintage Pilates with Jay and just the conversations I've had, with him personally, have given me a really strong foundation in the work. And with that very clear, complexly simple vision and understanding, I'm able to, with that lens, look at so much of the other variations and things that I've learned throughout the work before that seemed maybe just fun at the time or a little extra flourish or something. But now, because I understand the work from that deep foundational level with Jay, I'm able to take these variations and give them, I think, a little bit more consciously as opposed to just Pilates playtime and circus tricks. Carolina, do you want to try and explain that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
When we learn, you got to know the rules to bend the rules, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly.
Então, o John falou que através dessa fundação que ele conseguiu criar, porque ele tem um relacionamento mais próximo do Jay e do pessoal do Vintage, então ele conseguiu entender trabalhando de uma forma mais profunda no método. Ele depois conseguiu juntar com o que mais ele veio aprendendo para daí poder adaptar essas variações, como utilizar as adaptações, mas primeiramente ele vê que é necessário ter a fundação do método, entender como funciona para depois poder dobrar e dar uma variada, né?
Ok. Natanael?
Não, inicialmente eu queria só dar um oi para uma galera que sempre está aí.
Uhum.
Eu vi a Daisy Kellerman, a Ana Karlovic, o Everton, o Alisson. Tem uma galera que sempre está presente nas lives. A Ângela. Então, brigadão. O Tiago que deu um oi. Bem, eu queria perguntar a Carol o seguinte. Eu já fiz uma live com a Carol, ela me contou a história dela, saída do Brasil, né, tendo uma experiência inicialmente meio sem entender um pouco de Pilates aqui no Brasil, teve posterior. E aí eu queria que você pudesse falar um pouquinho, Carol, de quando você chegou nos Estados Unidos, que fez um curso de Pilates mais denso, como foi essa experiência inicial, até o ponto de chegar até a experiência no Jacob's Pillow. Como foi que aconteceu esse processo?
Okay. So John, he's asking me about my experience since I haven't had an experience in Pilates in Brazil. So he asking me how is my experience since I got here in the States. So I'm going to speak Português.
Go for it. I'm going to sip and try and listen to as much as I can and figure it out. Go for it, girl.
Boa noite a todos, né? Primeiro, não agradeci, gente. Muito obrigada pelo convite. Uma honra novamente estar aqui com vocês. Realmente, Natanael, nossa primeira live, a primeira live que eu fiz na minha vida foi com você. Foi sobre essa experiência.
Muita coisa mudou de lá para cá, não foi?
Pois abriram as portas.
Ali foi um ponto inicial importante.
Com certeza. E, além disso, eu tive a oportunidade de ir no Brasil e ver qual é o mercado do Pilates no Brasil, né? Porque eu já estava fora do Brasil, já moro aqui há 15 anos, e realmente eu estive de férias no Brasil algumas vezes que eu fazia Pilates por atividade física, né? Mas aí, quando eu vim para cá há 8 anos atrás, eu tive a oportunidade de estar mais presente no estúdio de Pilates e era clássico. E lá eu comecei a treinar uma vez na semana como aluna normal. Pilates é caro, né? Então eu não podia pagar mais que uma vez na semana. E de repente eu recebi um newsletter do estúdio, né? Uma carta avisando que a dona do estúdio iria fazer um treino para professores novos. Eu falei, olha, eu já até fiz algum treininho de Pilates lá no Brasil, de um fim de semana, no qual não era para eu exercer lá, então era só porque a gente era amigos, mas eu falei, eu não aprendi muita coisa, porque são muitos aparelhos diferentes, né? E aí ela falou, não, mas aqui o meu objetivo é fazer com que você tenha sucesso, você vai aprender. Aí eu falei, ok. Mas quando eu entrei, eu não tinha noção do que era. E ali a gente já começa a fazer um fim de semana de 20 horas, né? E entre essas 20 horas, a gente tem que percorrer ali, em um mês, a gente tem que cumprir 60 horas, né? Observação, dando aula e praticando. E assim vem para o próximo fim de semana, então finalizou 4 módulos, que fechou o primeiro level, primeiro nível, e de lá a gente já tinha que fazer o intermediário, porque se não tivesse intermediário, eu não poderia começar a dar aula. E eu achava que eu queria mudar minha carreira, mas eu não tinha noção que ia ser com muito esforço, né? Então, ali por diante, eu tive uma colega comigo que ela estava fazendo junto na mesma época, então a gente treinava juntos, fizemos o intermediário, passamos, e daí foi no Pilates que a gente fez em Boston. E o resto eu nem sabia direito quem era Romana, eu não sabia nada do Pilates. Comecei a buscar um pouco sobre o Joseph, óbvio, e finalizei a minha parte toda compreensiva do curso. E a minha sócia hoje em dia, a Lane Wilkinson, ela deve estar assistindo a gente, foi graças a ela que eu conheci o John, ela falou assim, a gente vai para Filadélfia numa convenção de Pilates. Eu falei, nossa, mas eu mal sei o básico, já vou, né, me metendo nos outros. E daí era lá, Kathy Ross Nash, Blossom, Danny Santi, tinha um monte de gente, Brett Howard, e ali eu tentei trabalhar nos workshops mais básicos, de fundação de Pilates, porque eu achava que eu ainda não estava pronto para fazer nada mais além. E a minha população que eu dava aula eram idosos, então eu precisava mais de pré-Pilates. E ali eu vi um outro mundo, né? Não era só o curso que eu fiz formatado ali no sentido de romana, no jeito da romana, e eu pude abrir as minhas expectativas. E dali, uns 2 anos, teve a oportunidade de ir no Jacob's Pillow. Eu não tinha nem noção do que era Jacob's Pillow. Eu ouvi o nome, eu pensei, o que é isso? Eu fui fazer uma aula com uma amiga, ela falou, eu fui lá. Eles tinham a Badnesian, que é a cama, né, do Joseph, que vira em V. E eu falei, o que é isso, Badnesian? Só que eu fiquei com vergonha. Primeiro, porque americano fala muito rápido inglês. Segundo, eu pensei, será que eu tô perdida na tradução? Então, fui lá na internet pesquisar tudo e eles estavam com as vagas abertas. Aí foi quando eu me inscrevi e fui admitida para participar de uma das convenções. Depois, estando lá nessa primeira convenção que eu fui, que foi do Bench Match, que eu me inspirei para comprar um para mim, daí eles me convidaram para ser fotógrafo oficial do evento na outra temporada que teve, que foi a de setembro. E era para a gente ter ido lá agora em abril de novo, mas não deu certo, né?
Legal.
Bom. Muito bem, senhorita. Agora deixa eu fazer uma perguntinha para o John. Eu já ia perguntar isso. Quando ele entrou, eu digo, rapaz, parece aquela galera que toca saxofone, trompete, o estilo dele, o visual da sala. E aí, quando ele falou dessa questão da história da música, me veio o livro do Jon Scott, que quando ele vai falar sobre o que diferencia Pilates de outras técnicas de exercício, ele fala muito da coisa do você fazer o exercício a chegar ao ponto de fazer automaticamente. E ele dá o exemplo de um músico que toca bar, que é essa coisa de você fazer no modo automático. Você está ali fazendo os exercícios do Reformer, por exemplo, fazendo num ponto que você entra no Reformer, faz de modo automático, meio que sem pensar, como se fosse uma conexão profunda de corpo e mente, e aí isso você segue. E aí eu queria perguntar a ele se ele acha que, de certa forma, o trabalho com a música ajudou ele na contrologia.
Okay, John. So he's asking that about you, if the music helped you to get into the contrology work, because he was reading on the Jon Scott book, the Cage Lion, that he compares Pilates as a musician, the way that you have to play the music, the rhythm music, you have a rhythm, and you might be able to translate like that to the reformer work or something like that. How do you see that?
I love this question. I love this question. I from day one felt that there was musicality in Pilates class, even though there was no music. Like when I would be in ballet, and we had Kermit in the corner who would play piano. This is at Rehab here at Brooke Seiler's old studio downtown years ago when Jay would come down and do workshops.
Olha a cara do Jay.
The J face. Yeah.
This is good. You know. Oh, so honest, so honest. Yeah, but the music, I think that when you practice Pilates, it's like practicing a piece, whether it's a full symphony or just a small etude or an aria or whatever. There are movements in it. There are peaks. There are the tempo starts to quicken and slow. And I think that when you get to the level of truly feeling Pilates and can start to execute your workout with that freedom. Here's another one from Riyadh with Jay. I'm just a moving specter. It's so freeing. It really, you have that. It becomes, as Kathy and Jay have both said to me, where each kind of workout is almost just one continuous exercise that keeps moving through, in the same way that a piece of music may slow down. It may have a brief pause, but then it picks up again until that final cadence where you finish that last movement of your workout and stand up ready to go. So once again, I've said so much. Carolina, do you want to try and translate?
Sure. Então, ele disse que sim, com certeza. Ele é uma boa pergunta, porque realmente, né, por ser músico, e ele com certeza associa a música à contrologia, porque assim como na música tem diferentes tunes, né, que sobe, desce, fica mais calmo, fica mais agitado. Ele diz que no trabalho também da contrologia tem. Tanto o Jay quanto a Kathy falavam isso, que conforme você está ali praticando, está sempre em movimento, no movimento fluido, se conectando um exercício com o outro, alguns mais intensos, outros mais devagar, mas sempre com aquela conexão. E ele acha importante que quando a pessoa consegue se conectar com o seu próprio corpo, né, quando está praticando, daí é quando você sente, né, como se fosse a música, né, a gente sente a música no nosso corpo, dá aquela movimentada, e na contrologia a mesma coisa. Jon, I forgot one thing. Nathanael did mention that you look like a musician, a cool one, because, you know, the environment behind you, and he also thought that you would play saxophone or something like that. Do you play guitar?
I have a clarinet here as well.
Clarinet, Nathanael.
You play jazz?
So I studied classical voice for the first 2 years of my undergraduate, and then changed up to more of a music theater concentration, and then worked in the music theater world for some time. A good friend of mine, Tucker Davis, who actually was teaching dance here at Ithaca College for some time. Before that, had injured his knee and started doing Pilates rehabilitatively with Marika and the New York City Ballet PT staff. So that's kind of actually what pulled me into Pilates. I first was introduced to Pilates in 2000 as a freshman in college, and I paid for 10 lessons. I think I went to 3, and I never went back again. So it took some time for me to fall in love with the work, but yeah. Carolina, do you want to translate?
Yeah, do it. Então ele estava falando que sim, que ele toca clarinete também, e quando ele começou a fazer a escola de música foi mais vocal, né? Foi mais a parte de cantar, e depois ele começou a participar de teatros também. Então lá ele conheceu um amigo dele, que também é professor de dança e ensinava numa faculdade lá em Nova York, e ele acabou se machucando, esse amigo. Teve um problema no joelho e acabou entrando no Pilates para poder, né, se fortalecer, e daí o Jon acabou conhecendo o Pilates em 2010. 2010, you said, Jon?
I met Tucker in 2004. He injured his knee in 2006, and then his insurance claim ran out, and he could no longer afford to study with Marika Molnar and the rest of the geniuses George Balanchine, who ran and founded New York City Ballet, hired personally to start the program. So when he could no longer afford to study with them, he started taking mat classes with this woman, Jeanette Palmer, who truly, I think, was kind of my first Pilates teacher. She's a fabulous music theater actress who dance captain for Liza Minnelli, and danced on Broadway and all of that. And so Tucker started studying with her and pulled me into the class with him for moral support. And I was kicking and screaming. But that first night I went home after her class and sat on my friend's couch and was quivering because she kicked my butt. So I quickly went back. And the next day after her class at lunch, 24 hours later, I went to take a jazz class. And I was dancing like I had never danced before. So I just became addicted, and kind of one thing led to another. But yeah, so that was 2006. 2007, then I officially began teacher training. Carolina, do you want to fill in the blanks? And
yes, sure. I'm not sure if I can repeat all of those dancers' names, but I'm gonna kind of...
No problem.
Então, esse amigo dele era um dançarino profissional, né? E ele dançou com as pessoas envolvidas com Valentino, né? Então, ali chegou uma hora que ele não tinha mais condições de poder pagar essas aulas, e daí foi quando ele entrou no Pilates e arrastou o Jon com ele. E o Jon foi meio esperneando, não queria muito ir, mas fez a aula, e ele disse que depois dessa aula de Pilates, ele chegou em casa e ficou no sofá, deitado, as pernas ainda estavam trêmulas, quivering, E daí, no outro dia, ele foi fazer uma aula de jazz, né, de dança, e ele disse que ele nunca dançou tão bem quanto aquele dia, logo depois da aula do Pilates.
Legal, hein?
Yeah. So my training story, I have so many different people that I've studied with, and it's a long sordid tale. Do you want me to get into the whole journey of all the different steps here of the process?
Ele tá falando que ele teve muitas pessoas que ele acabou estudando desde 2007, né, que ele falou que começou a fazer os treinos, e ele quer saber se vocês querem saber todas essas pessoas.
I can do long or short.
Pode ser mais...
We have all night, no problem. No. The short version. It's not the yeah.
Pega clarinete aí.
Yeah, the actor's cut.
I'll give the full story, but in the abridged quick tale. So I continued to study with Jeanette at the dance studio while Tucker healed, and took class with her 3 times a week, a mat class, and saw my body change. And although I had been dancing professionally as a music theater actor, like I said, the results were apparent. So after having a successful enough audition season to where I was getting called back to the end for every job I auditioned for, but booking none of them, I was a little down and out, and I was trying to figure out what my next step was. If this was just a dry spell as an actor, or if this was a moment that I needed to leave the business. So it left me at this impasse of where do I go here? Carolina, do you want to translate? And then I'll go.
Então, ele começou a fazer algumas aulas com essa Janete, né, 3 vezes na semana, e ao mesmo tempo ele estava seguindo a carreira dele como ator e músico, né, teatral, né, a carreira dele. E ele tentava fazer algumas audições e não estava indo muito para frente. Então, ele estava sentindo um pouco assim, o que será que eu vou continuar seguindo na minha vida?
Yeah, so Jeanette, my teacher, Jeanette Palmer, at the time, was leaving town for maybe 4 weeks to take August on holiday. And she, the one that I was taking class from, asked me if I would step in and hold class.
Então, a Janete saiu de férias e por um mês e perguntou se o Jon gostaria de entrar como substituto para dar aulas no lugar dela durante as férias.
Yeah, so I had been taking her class 3 times a week, but I had not been trained to teach Pilates at all. So, like any good actor, I just said, all right, just take it apart. So I typed up a script, and I came to class to teach with my script and taught the class reading the script.
Então, o Jon fazia aula com ela só 3 vezes a semana, ele não tinha treino nenhum, mas como um ator, ele respondeu sim para ela, que iria dar aula, e assim ele fez um roteiro das aulas, e ele levava o roteiro e dava aula com o roteiro na frente.
So it was getting my feet wet. And Jeanette said, listen, if I cancel this class for 4 weeks while I'm gone, this class is going to die. Like, rest in peace. There will be nobody coming back again. So the only way we can keep this going, because no one else can sub, is if you can step in. We are at a dance studio. If the ballet teacher left, the kind of front of the class pupil would step in to hold class until they came back and could resume. Carolina.
Yes. Então, assim como numa aula de dança, se o professor de balé sai da sala e fala tem que sair, vem um aluno e tem que continuar dando a aula. Então, ela falou para ele, se você não pegar essas aulas, esses alunos vão me abandonar, essa aula vai morrer, porque eles não vão me esperar por 4 semanas. E praticamente, né, persuadiu o Jon aí para dar aula.
So I stepped up to the plate and I led class, and I am so grateful for my peers that knew me and gave me the space and the opportunity to fumble through. I mean, God bless them. They would be sitting in a curl for what felt like 5 minutes while I went, But it whet my appetite. And shortly after that, I began my official journey training and getting certified by the folks that I did. Carolina, why don't you translate?
Então, essa foi a oportunidade que o Jon teve de praticar, né, com os alunos, por mais que eles estavam ali sofrendo um pouco, né, ele disse que às vezes eles ficavam ali, né, enrolados ali num curl, ali numa flexão, esperando ele falar o que é o próximo, né? Mas foi a oportunidade que ele teve de entender que ele gostava disso, e daí, depois dessa oportunidade, ele começou a estudar oficialmente Pilates.
Yeah. So Jeanette had been assisting with a woman named Linda Farrell, who's still here in New York. She is a Ramana's Pilates trained teacher, although she doesn't work with Ramana's anymore. She found a real talent in working on the mat, in cueing mat classes, specifically group mat classes. So she, somewhere in the 1990s, started Equinox Fitness doing Pilates mat. She was the one that was responsible for bringing the mat to it. And she was certifying teachers with just, the mat work. That's all she was doing. And Jeanette said, why don't you start here rather than doing the full, course at Ramana's or anything else, because you don't even know if you really want to fully be a Pilates teacher right now. This is kind of like a gig to do when you're not acting for you right now, because I officially was still kind of performing and doing that. So it was Linda Farrell's mat certification is where I officially began.
Então, ele começou fazendo a certificação da Linda Farrells, que é uma professora em Nova York, e ela dava certificação de mat, especificamente numa academia. Ela lançou nos anos 90, nessa academia grande. A Equinox é uma academia muito grande, tem em várias cidades dos Estados Unidos inteiro, e eles têm um programa de Pilates Training muito bom lá, e assim como eles servem os próprios membros também.
So I went through her program, and I forget how many hours we had to do, if it was 250, 400, 500, but it was anatomy. It was, teacher workshops on the exercises. We had to do observation hours. We had to do our practice teaching, a written test. It was all the above, but just for the mat. So I quickly then after that began substitute teaching mat classes here in New York City for Linda, for different peers about town in between music theater jobs that I ended up getting after that dry spell where I kind of learned how to teach.
Então, aí logo nessa certificação, ele não lembra exato a quantidade de horas, mas teve que aprender anatomia, teve que fazer observações, dar aula durante a certificação, foi aproximadamente 400 ou 500 horas, e era só de mat que ele estava aprendendo. E com isso, entre os trabalhos que ele já tinha, ele começou a dar aulas em alguns estúdios lá para poder aprender mais.
So there was a small independently owned mom and pop gym named Body Strength Fitness on 106th Street and Broadway that ended up bringing me on as a teacher there. And at one point, I think I was teaching something crazy like 6 classes regularly, but it ended up turning into like maybe 13 a week because of just me substituting in for peers. And it was challenging in that it was taxing, to teach a group class, but it was really enjoyable. I built up quite a following where we ended up having classes sometimes of 35 to 40 people in there doing the mat. And it felt like something, as I drink out of my Pilates studio of Brazil, like some Anelia Garcia madness, where she's got an army of individuals. So I was very fortunate to have that home at Body Strength. Carolina, do you want to translate?
Yeah.
Então, nesse Body Strength, né, nesse lugar que ele começou a trabalhar, ele começou só com 6 horas, 6 aulas na semana, de repente foi para 13 e foi substituindo mais e mais, e teve aulas que ele dava com 35 pessoas. 35 people, Jon.
Yeah. Literally, the most challenging thing of that class was not teaching the Pilates to the individuals. It was making sure that everybody had their own space. So there was a strategy to it. It was an art. You would get into the classroom and show up and look around and go, oh dear, because there would be maybe some poor little 80-year-old lady who had been squished in by 2 really, strong-willed peoples. But I would do a quick standing warm-up, whether it was something very reminiscent to the video of Joe at Jacob's Pillow, the running in place, et cetera, or something that was more similar to what my previous teacher, Jeanette, had done for her class. But after that point, you'd probably end up 5 to 10 minutes into class, and you could discern if, anybody else was coming in. And I would literally have to count and do a quick math, divide, multiply, whatever, and split the room up, and then bevel front, back, to make sure that there was at least like sometimes 2 inches between the mat. These people were crazy and so into their Pilates. They would get there early, they would get ornery, but it was beautiful. It was so fun to see whether it was, we had some Cirque du Soleil dancers coming in, whether it was just students from Columbia University or folks that are, in their older age in New York City coming through. And still, actually to this day, it's fun. And we'll circle back to where we left off, but I have so many of those folks that have now come out of the woodwork after time away, because it's been some time since I worked at this gym, who now are studying with me in some group classes online. So full circle. Carolina, I don't know if you want to try and go through that.
Yeah.
Então, ele diz que nessas aulas, né, de 35 pessoas, ele começava as aulas com aquecimento, né, em pé, como se fosse aquela série do Joe, né, no pelo, que ele tá de pé lá. Ali já ia quase 10, 12 minutos da aula, e ele conseguia ir dividindo as pessoas, né, no qual tinha praticamente 3, 4 centímetros entre um metro e o outro, né? E tinha pessoas de várias idades, alunos de outras faculdades, dançarinos e até pessoas mais de idade que iam lá. E com isso ele conseguiu adquirir seguidores, né? Que talvez não continuaram fazendo aula com ele por um tempo, mas que agora, nessa vida online, eles voltaram a fazer aula com ele nesse momento. Ele também se comparou a Anélia Garcia, que ele disse que se sentia como se tivesse a arma da Anélia Garcia, como ela consegue conduzir, né?
Uma orquestra ali quase, né?
Yeah, so I felt very blessed to have that following, and from that, a lot of them just organically started asking me to come to their homes to do private classes. And so I just started taking the show kind of on the road like any crazy actor does, and picked up at that time, I would carry around TheraBands and magic circles and like even hand weights, which who wants to lug hand weights around New York? But you do what you have to do. And so I built up a nice following on the Upper West Side here in Manhattan. Carolina, translate, and then I'll go into the next.
Então, aí nessa fase, as pessoas começaram a pedir para que ele fosse dar aula na casa das pessoas, e ele aceitou como um ator doido, né? Como qualquer ator doido aceita essas propostas, e ele ia, e ele levava a TheraBand, a faixa elástica, né, para as pessoas, o Magic Circle, inclusive os pezinhos de mão, né? E quem que quer carregar pezinho de mão lá em Nova York, né?
So it was kind of just, taking it through, making it work like any crazy, like I said, actor does. So speaking of music theater, a colleague of my teacher, Jeanette Palmer, whom I'd spoken of before, who had done Showboat on Broadway and, like I said, Dance Captain for Liza Minnelli, etc., turned me on to a woman in New Jersey, right across the river here, who she had known working through the music theater business, named Barbara Boone. And Barbara is fabulous. She was trained at Juilliard for dance. Post-graduation, she worked with Twyla Tharp. And continued to go on and have a career in film and television and all of that. But now she owns a Pilates studio, and that's really her focus. And she was looking for teachers. So I got introduced to her in New Jersey, and that journey started.
Então, a professora dele, Janete, a primeira professora, acabou vinculando ele com uma professora em New Jersey, né? Ele falou across the bridge, então, saindo de Nova York, ali perto. E o nome dela é Bárbara, e no entanto que ela já deu aula na Juilliard, que é uma escola famosa aqui de música, dança, em vários lugares, e hoje em dia ela tem o próprio estúdio dela, e o Jon foi trabalhar com ela, ficou lá muito tempo.
So I started commuting out to her studio to teach group mat classes because that was my strong suit. And she wanted me to start teaching some private lessons as well. So I ended up saying to her, I don't know how to work on the equipment. Very old school. I ended up setting out in New Jersey, maybe 3 to 4 days a week and just apprenticing under her. And I would teach my group mat classes and she would let me sit and just watch her teach her clients and teach me a little bit here and there so that I learned kind of organically under a private, not official at all. There was no piece of paper there, but that's kind of how I initially learned how to work on the reformer and all of that. She was trained by a man named Patrick Strong, who worked very closely with Ramana out of SUNY Purchase, and then here in the city, he was trained alongside of Carrie Regan, who you may have heard, and the two of them worked very intimately at Ramana's side. So Barbara is amazing in that she's just got such old school knowledge of what Pilates was in the 70s right after Joe died. So that's where I initially learned, kind of through Barbara, who had learned through Patrick, who had learned through Ramana, how to teach Pilates as a full method on equipment and the mat and all of that, which led me to then teaching private clients more than just mat work, but stuff on the equipment as well. Carol, I pass the hat to you. Kind of.
Thank you, dear. Então, aí, nesse estúdio, ele só estava dando aula de mat, primeiramente, porque era o que ele achava que era o forte dele, né, de conhecimento. E a Bárbara queria que ele começasse a dar aulas privadas, né, de equipamento, de tudo. E aí, então, ele começou a fazer como se fosse um esquema de aprendiz lá. Ele começava a observar ela dar aula, e ela fez aula com o Patrick, que fez aula com a Romana, na época que a Romana dava aula na Português. Então, ele acabou aprendendo muita coisa, né, do método por parte da Romana, através dos dois, né, e foi assim que ele começou os equipamentos daí.
So, yeah, the relationship with Barbara was amazing, and I still am very close with her these days, although I don't teach at her studio anymore. So while I was teaching there, I started then teaching privately on not only just house calls in the mat, but I started renting equipment hour by hour from some studio owners here in the city and bringing my clients to then introduce them to the Reformer and the Cadillac and all of that. And from there, word got out, and actually to circle back to Equinox, Equinox scouted me and tried to get me to come in and teach for them. because the word was you should get Jon in there. This would be good for your studio. But unfortunately, I didn't have a piece of paper to certify me other than just the original mat. So when Equinox kind of found out through corporate head, they said, we can't do this with him. So I was left kind of up the creek without a paddle, trying to figure out what's my next step right now. Carolina, do you want to translate that? Thank you. Thank you.
Então, lá na Bárbara, ele não teve nenhuma certificação em papel em si, né? Ele só foi aprendendo por observação, estando lá, experiências, né? Então, ele teve uma oportunidade de trabalhar nessa Equinox, nessa academia grande, porém, ele precisava de uma certificação, ele só tinha certificação de MAT. Então, ele acabou que daí, foi nessa hora que ele acabou indo atrás de uma certificação. Right, Jon? So, you went to get your certification?
Well, so from there, Barbara, over the years, you know, she's just got so many different people that have really been close to her in her life. And one of the folks that continually would come up from Santa Fe, New Mexico was, Ray Kerschel's is his name. And Ray Kerschel owns Pilates Santa Fe. And he danced with Barbara Hoon in the Twyla Tharp Company. He had an extensive dance career. He was with Paul Taylor for a little bit, etc. He worked with Romana, Kathy Grant, Carola Trier, Bruce King, Eve Gentry, a whole different people, and has a very interesting look on the work. I mean, he's definitely made it his own, and it's fabulous. Trained the Olympic athletes in 1995 here, etc. So Ray and I had an independent relationship because we had just spent time while he was visiting Barbara. He would stay with her. So when this conundrum came of, I feel that I need some sort of official paperwork. It's all about your papers these days. I talked to Ray and said, can I do an independent study with you? Who he, through Pilates Santa Fe, was certifying people on a full kind of spectrum there. So I sat with Ray over the course of a few different weekends and went through another private study, but more an official private study with Ray, so that I did have some sort of, kind of proof of service. Carolina, do you want to go into that?
Então, esse Ray ia muito no estúdio da Bárbara e ele teve a oportunidade de ficar mais próximo do Ray, e foi através do Ray que ele começou a aprender mais a parte, né, que faltava para ele, e o Ray teve contato com vários outros elders, inclusive a Kathy Grant, que ele mencionou, e então ele pôde fazer a certificação privada com o Ray.
So Ray and Linda Farrell at that point were my two pieces of paper that I had to kind of march the streets with. And I ended up then getting, yet again, Equinox somehow circled back out. I'm not going to say her name because she didn't want people to know that she had referred me this way, because there's so many politics. But after working with this Pilates studio coordinator at one of the Equinoxes here in the city, she said, your energy, you need to meet Kathy Ross Nash. And now I didn't really know who she was. It was just this name of Kathy Ross Nash across the Hudson River over New Jersey. So I did the research, and Kathy, this was before the books had published. I think this was maybe right as Pilatesology was starting to come out. So she was certainly known in the Romana's Pilates world, right, from the conferences, etc. But she was still keeping herself very kind of like low-key in her little bubble in New Jersey, and only working with the teachers that she wanted to work with. She didn't have kind of an open door policy. It was very much who recommended you here, or da-da-da-da-da-da. So somehow I ended up getting in to see the wizard. And began my relationship with Kathy through that kind of scouting out of Equinox, who said, you should go learn more from her. Carolina, do you want to translate?
Então, quando ele voltou para a Equinox, né, mas de novo ele fala muito desse ciclo com a Equinox novamente, sempre voltando na vida dele. Alguém lá, uma das coordenadoras, falou para ele, bom, você tem uma energia muito grande e dá para se comparar com a energia da Kathy Ross, você tem que conhecê-la. E, na verdade, ele falou que ele nem sabia quem era ela, ele tentou procurar, ela morava ali em New Jersey na época, né, então do outro lado ali de Nova York, mas ela estava ali numa comunidade muito fechada, ela acabava dando aula só para os instrutores que ela queria naquela época, não, ela não estava ainda, assim, no mundo do Pilates, apesar dela ser formada com a Romana, né, o pessoal da Romana tudo conhecia ela.
So, yeah, as I think about it, it was Barbara who went through and referred me to Kathy. She was the connection because Barbara, as an old theater dancer, etc., here in New York, started to think about it and said, we maybe had taken ballet class together in like the 1980s. And Barbara is always looking for the best of the best at her studio in New Jersey, even though she's an hour outside of New York. She has no problem with paying for transportation, etc., and giving people top dollar to come study at her studio. So 6 Degrees Pilates, name drop. But anyway, so Barbara contacted Kathy and said, listen, I'd like to make connections here. I need some teachers, et cetera, et cetera. So they got in to meet each other. And Kathy, for a short period in New Jersey, had similar to the idea of a Jacob's Pillow summer thing. She had a weekend at her house where she had friends like Peter Fiasca, Brooke Tyler, Brett Howard and such over there, and they would just maybe 20 friends, close, whatever, hang out in Kathy's backyard in the pool and just play Pilates in her studio and talk about the work and think about different things. So what year was this? This was perhaps, I think, the summer of 2011. I found myself meeting Kathy for the first time at her house in her backyard for this barbecue of her close friends, just as Barbara's date. So I felt completely out of place because here I was, somebody that was not a part of Romana's Pilates at all, with the kind of superstars of Romana's world. So, but I mean, I just, politely hung out and had some fun, and actually learned that Brett Howard's husband, Tetsuo, and I did Cats, the musical, together years ago before Tetsuo was with Brett, and the 6 degrees of separation is crazy. So, Carolina, do you want to connect those dots?
I'll try that.
Sorry, I keep throwing a lot at you.
Okay. Ele estava falando, então, que a Bárbara conectou a Kathy Ross para poder falar falar que o John precisava de um treino, ela precisava de mais instrutores e queria mandar ele para treinar com a Kathy. E a Kathy, na época, ela estava fazendo como se fosse o fim de semana do Jacob's Pillow lá na casa dela, e era só, por exemplo, 20 instrutores, nos quais tinham os superstars, tipo o Brett Howard, Brooke Tyler, Peter Fiasca. Então era uma coisa muito fechada. E daí o John foi convidado aí nesse fim de semana lá num barbecue, num churrasco. Isso, no jardim, no quintal da Kathy. E ele chegou lá e se sentiu totalmente perdido por fora, porque ele não conhecia, né, o Pilates, né, o pessoal do Pilates da Romana, e estavam todos lá os superstars.
So that was, like I said, I although God knows dates are fuzzy, but I believe that was August of 2011. And then shortly after that, 7 months later, 6 months later, 5 months later, whatever the math is, in December, when Jay Grimes came to Rehab that year to present his weekends of workshops, etc., I ended up sitting next to Kathy and Brooke for the workshops, and we ended up clicking. How you're in a workshop situation. It's very intimate, it's quiet, but you maybe will have a moment where you say a little aside to someone and not. So we found that our brains were very similar, and we worked and got along and had fun and all of that. So that weekend with Jay was great, and we'll talk about Jay Grimes some more later. But then maybe 2 weeks later, or a week later perhaps, at the newly opened Pilates Challenge, they were doing a video with Chris Robinson and a few others where Kathy was going to teach a kick-ass mat with the headstands and all of that to men. And I believe Ernesto had an injury or something that panned out right before and prevented him from coming in. So I swung in and just followed along, and I think that video is somewhere in the archives of Pilatesology. But that was really the moment where we clicked. And then shortly after that, I ended up making the Mecca out to her house for private sessions. and really just that's when our deep relationship began. And we can go into that chapter some more. Carolina, do you want to kind of...
Yeah, sure. Então ele acabou, naquele ano ainda, ele acabou fazendo um curso de fim de semana com o Jay, no qual ele estava com esqueci o nome das pessoas que ele falou. Did you say you were in the weekend with Blossom or the Jay?
No. The only time I've met Blossom was once at Romana's funeral. We've never really worked together. I respect her, but just no. It was I met Kathy at Brooke Seiler's studio. Yeah. She used to host them.
E daí ele acabou indo em um outro fim de semana junto. A Kathy estaria dando uma aula só para homens nesse dia, que teria até headstands e tudo. E a pessoa que ia ser aluna dela acabou se machucando. Aí o John entrou, e daí foi quando eles tiveram um clique, que eles se conectaram mais. Ele começou a fazer aulas privadas com ela, daí com mais frequência.
Nice. Yeah, so from clicking at the Brooke Seiler workshop with Jay Grimes to then doing the videos for Kathy, then a week later after we had clicked at the Pilates Challenge Studio for Pilatesology, if you can follow all of that, we then, I think she then at that point said, okay, I can work with this kid, you know, he's not just some random floozy or whatever it is. So that's when I started studying privately with her and going home afterwards and diligently just writing down the lessons that she would give me and repeat them the days after, so I could come back and hold the corrections and really make progress, as opposed to, you know, so many of our students that you end up for 10 years, you're like, lower the shoulders, Sally. Take shoulders down, Sally. So it was wonderful working with her, because she really started to truly, I think, connect the dots of the method for me. Whereas I had learned so many exercises from so many different people, she was the one that I think taught me from ABCs and letters and words and all that of Pilates to actually speak the language and really work the system. So, and I'll talk more about our journey together, but Carol, if you want to catch them up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Então foi da partir daí que ele começou realmente a aprender o método com a Kathy, porque antes ele tinha aprendido vários exercícios e ele não entendia direito as conexões. Então com a Kathy ele aprendia, ela dava aula para ele e depois ele anotava tudo que tinha aprendido com ela para que ele conseguisse entender as correções e conseguisse segurar as correções no corpo dele, né? Que é a diferença que muitas vezes a gente está dando aula para um aluno já praticamente há 10 anos e você ainda tem que lembrar o aluno para abraçar, né? Coisa e tal. A gente está ali o tempo inteiro. Mas, enfim, aí com ela ele conseguiu entender o porquê do método.
So I continued to study very closely with Kathy then. And like I said, I'm just so indebted to her for giving me so much. I mean, that woman is so passionate about the work and is truly just such a genius, and has spent so much time of her life devoted to the work. And like I said, hats off to her and the project of the manuals, the red thread manuals, because they really have, in so many ways, in like Pilatesology has done and whatnot, are really tangible pieces to preserve the work. So do you want me to keep going, Carolina, or do you want to try?
I'll go quick. Então, ele aprecia muito ter trabalhado com a Kathy e ele agradece muito essa oportunidade, que realmente ela é muito apaixonada pelo método e ela ensina muito bem, e todos os detalhes que ela escreve no livro dela realmente tem um fundamento muito grande, né?
So, as things came together for me mentally, welcome back, Nathanael. Welcome back. Obrigado. So as things came together here very quickly with Kathy, and studying so hard with her, she maybe 6 months later invited me to what that summer, rather than the barbecue kind of fun pool party she had done the year before, she called us it was like the Sweet 16, and it was 16 teachers that she had trained pretty intimately. Victoria Torri, Ilaria Cavagna, Ernesto, myself here, Tony Balongo was in from Spain, so many other fabulous teachers. So we had about a week, I believe, that we ended up spending with her, just dismantling the work. And she was gracious because this had been something that they had all been spending time with her for years. So this was a close crew. But she said, "Listen, Jon, we're really clicking. Your work is looking really good. You know a couple of these people. I've asked them, and they're okay with you coming in. Do you want to join us?" And I said, "Absolutely." So I had a wonderful time with them that summer. I believe our goal was to dissect the reformer from head to toe, but I mean, she's such a fan of minutia, the little bits that really count. So we made it through a good portion of it, but we didn't get to the whole reformer, even though we spent a full week. But so that was wonderful because it was such a formative time, and yet again, and meeting so many other great friends of mine now that I'm super close to after that experience. Carolina, do you want to?
Yeah. Então, aí ele passou uma semana lá com a Kathy e com mais outros professores, né, que são conhecidos aí no Pilates College. Ele citou vários nomes, Vitória, e enfim, não conseguia ver, né?
Carolina,
Isso, e eles ela chamava esse grupo de Sweet 16, né? Então foram os 16 professores muito intimamente que ela já conhecia, então o Jon acabou sendo convidado era o programa para dessecar o Reformer, e por mais que eles ficaram uma semana lá, eles não conseguiram ir fazer todos os exercícios possíveis da cabeça aos pés no Reformer, não.
So it was fabulous, and I learned a lot, as I did pretty much with every moment I spent with Kathy. And shortly after that, she ended up referring me through to the staff that owned Pilates Challenge, that studio where we had filmed the men's workout months before. So I began working at that studio, and the majority, I think maybe all of the teachers there had gone through Romana's Pilates here in New York at True Pilates. So they had their pedigree and the way they taught. And they, once again, these are some of my dearest friends. I love them. But I think out of my own insecurity, I felt like I was the odd man out. I hadn't gone to Romana's. Once again, like I said, I never met Romana. So I just was very inconfident in what I was doing. So I went back to Kathy sometime that fall and said, "Mama, what do I do?" So I was at that point probably 2 steps away from going through and getting a 3rd certification then from Romana's Pilates and doing the full comprehensive cert, like so many wonderful people do after so much great experience of teaching already, right? It's not uncommon. But she, for various reasons, which I won't go into too much, said, "You have such a relationship with Jay." Having studied with him for multiple years when he's been in town at Brooks down at Rehab. They've just opened up this studio in California named Vintage Pilates. You should contact them. In fact, I'll write an email to Karen Frischman, Jay's partner, and recommend you. And so sure enough, she did. And while I was working privately still weekly with Kathy and very close on her projects, and, we can talk about the book some more, et cetera. That is when the official, study came into play with Jay somewhere around. So that would have been maybe the fall of 2012. I believe, going into that. So, Carolina, I pass my
sure. Bom, então aí ele teve a oportunidade de trabalhar num estúdio em Nova York, Pilates Challenge, onde eles já filmaram aulas para homens lá, e ele estava perdido, porque todos os outros instrutores eram alunos do Pilates Romana, e formados, né? E daí ele ficou assim, se sentindo inseguro, então ele voltou para Kathy, até chamando ela de mama. O que eu faço? E daí ele já estava pensando seriamente em fazer a formação da Romana. Porém, a Kathy sugeriu, porque já que o Jon já tinha conhecido o Jay, enquanto o Jay vinha para Nova York fazer os cursos, os workshops de fim de semana, o Jon sempre estava lá. Então ela falou, por que você não vai, então, fazer com o Jay? E ela que fez a conexão do Jon com o Jay, ela mandou um e-mail para eles, e foi em 2012, quando o Jon...
2012.
Tá lá.
Exatamente. Ela recomendou ele.
Yeah. So from there, that's when I started my journey with Jay in doing the work. And that was taxing. That was hard. It was not easy. And Kathy kicked my ass every week. And balancing the hard work that I was doing with her. And then I would fly out to LA for 2 to 3 weeks at a time to just sit at Jay's feet and just watch him teach, because I think you guys can agree that's really when we learn the most.
Yeah.
And they put me through the ringer. I mean, we had to do assessment after assessment, and they were not afraid to boot you out of the program if they didn't feel like you were stepping up to the plate. There were some people that didn't end up graduating with us that were initially accepted into the program. And so, yeah, that was a full review at Vintage Pilates. I mean, we did the same thing. We had a full seminar, a couple, days here worth, just a Jay on the reformer, another one on the mat, and then we went down and just broke down each little piece of equipment. So all throughout that, I was balancing kind of my responsibility here in New York, and what became more and more of a close relationship with Kathy. I began to start to just assist her here and there with workshops, whether it was just literally filming them or whatever, or then going around the room and helping her with bodies and making corrections, etc. And somewhere along the line, she had a group down from Chile, Carlotta and Keika and Negro and all these other.
Negro, yeah. I know Negro, yeah.
Such a
Negro's amazing guy.
Can we just go to the beach and go surf with Negro right now?
Yeah, right now, yeah.
If you're listening, Negro, we love you.
Yeah.
But so, from them, I think from that point, she started setting me more into a true kind of right-hand man position. And I started helping her then unpack the idea for these manuals that she had really already laid out. By no means did I write them or anything at all. This is all her genius, but just having worked with her so closely, these workshops kind of started to help her and bounce, back ideas and things. Helped her really edit and transcribe things. There were days which was such a gem where she would just literally sit at my side at her house in the computer and verbally dictate the book to me, and I would just sit there and type like a little stenographer. Which was such a learning gem to be able to sit there and then go, wait a second, like, don't you want to say it this way? And she'd say, no, I want to say it this way because, and just such a wonderful opportunity. So throughout those years, it was just exponential growth for my head.
Awesome.
Sorry. We'll go back, Carolina.
Go back to California 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I'll go into that. I'll go into that more. I'm not done. It's like 2 stories at once.
Então, aí ele começou a fazer o curso com o Jay, né? Então ele tinha que balancear a vida dele em Nova York, porque ele acabava indo ficar 2, 3 semanas lá na Califórnia, né? Estudando com o Jay, literalmente sentado aos pés do Jay para observá-lo como ele dava aula, e aprendeu de tudo lá. E ele, inclusive, ele falou que lá no Vintage eles não tinham medo de, por exemplo, não passar um aluno, né? Porque se não estivesse pronto, a pessoa não iria passar. E foi difícil, ele falou que foi complicado mesmo já estudando com a Kathy Ross, que já praticamente pegava firme com ele no Pilates antes. Já estava se sentindo preparado, né? Já foi difícil. E depois disso, ele voltava para Nova York, ele continuou cada vez mais próximo da Kathy, e isso foi aproximando eles até no trabalho que ela estava tendo, nos workshops que ela dava, ele acabava auxiliando ela como mão direita, né? Tipo assim, ajudando o aluno a se corrigir. E ele foi uma das pessoas que ajudou a escrever o livro. Ele falou que não está pegando mérito nenhum de ninguém, mas estava literalmente sentado ao lado dela e ele que digitava. E ele achou isso uma oportunidade incrível, porque muitas vezes ela falava alguma coisa, ele digitava outra coisa, ou o que ele entendeu, e daí ela falava, não, na verdade eu quis dizer isso. Então foi aí uma oportunidade muito grande para ele aprender mais ainda detalhadamente.
Legal, nice, thank you.
Yeah, so it was a huge moment of just learning, and being out with Jay in California. Like I said earlier, really taught me, I think, how to juice the workout even more. and just take something that appeared so simple and just make it so meaty. And it was out there that I think that's when I started to just really, I think, find how everything started to connect. All of these wonderful tools that Kathy had given me, and why they were maybe there, and Romana had given them to her, etc. And so it was a really wonderful time. I met Murat Birkin from Istanbul, and Susanna Fostuk from Dubai. I think she's maybe in the UK now. And so many other wonderful just folks here from that initial seminar, Gaia Fagiani from Rome, and just wonderful friends. So that finished, and I continued working very closely with Kathy. Carolina, do you want me to stop, or do you want to?
Yes, please. Então, assim, ele continuou, né, estudando com o Jay, e ele teve a oportunidade de conseguir fazer essas conexões do método. Junto com a Kathy e com o Jay, ele conseguiu entender melhor o método de uma forma mais profunda, e teve a oportunidade de também compartilhar com outros professores, né, de outras partes do mundo. Ele citou Istambul, Roma, outros países também, que é muito bacana essa experiência.
So from there, Jay then personally asked 12 of us to come back from several years of the work, the classes that graduated, to come back and study more privately for this extended kind of graduate little certification course called Teaching the Work. And it was more or less going to be kind of the same time commitment of about 1.5 years or so of, you know, a week, 2 weeks at a time, flying out to LA, stopping everything here. And I went back and forth as to whether or not I wanted to go in now for what would be my like 4th kind of major Pilates certification. But it's not every day that Jay Grimes calls you on the phone and says, please, I want you to come and do my certification. So what do you say? Yes. Carolina, I'll give that to you.
Então, ele continuou estudando, né, até que chegou esse momento que o Jay pessoalmente ligou para ele para falar, eu quero que você venha fazer a minha certificação comigo, né? Antes era só workshops que ele fazia.
So I ended up signing up for part 2, the sequel, and started flying out once again with this cohort of teachers. And this included Gloria Gasperi from Pisa, Marianne from Barcelona, Murat once again, Susanna, and so many, Ken Kretsch, whom I think you guys have and just James Crane. The list goes on and on. But it was really a wonderful crew. So we spent week after week in LA with Jay, going through what it was to teach the work. You know, like understanding the exercises is one thing, understanding them in your body is another thing, but then how can I impart this on another individual? Because like we were saying earlier, no one person can teach Pilates or learn Pilates in the same way. So I'll go into specifics in a second here after Carolina translates, but it was a journey. It was a journey on how to teach the work.
Então, quando ele foi convidado a fazer a graduação do Jay para ser professores, né, do The Work, ele teve a oportunidade de estar com a Glória, com a Marianne, ele citou outros nomes ali também.
Glória Gasperi.
Muito gratificante, né, porque ali é onde outra parte continuou evoluindo, né, do trabalho dele.
So, we would spend hour upon hour just paired up, having to teach each other. And there was a bowl of folded up pieces of paper with all of our names on them that they would shake up and pick a name and say, John, you're on. You have to teach a mat class for everybody now. And Jay is going to watch and critique you. So many moments of that, stressful, but so wonderful because you grow, right? As Kathy Ross Nash had said to so many of us so many times, comfort doesn't elicit change, right? You have to be uncomfortable to grow and to change. Carolina, I'll give that to you to translate.
Então, nesse treinamento, tinha uma forma de sorteio, né? Tinha uma vasilha onde eles picavam um papelzinho com o nome de cada pessoa que estava lá e era sorteado, e de repente você era o da vez para dar aula na frente do Jay, e o Jay iria criticar, né? Então, ele falou que foi difícil, é complicado, desafiador, né? Mas como a Kathy ensinou, que tem que sair praticamente da zona de conforto, né? Se é confortável, então não vai adiantar. Então, tem que ir com seus limites, além dos limites.
So it was full of so much magic, and they would bring in clients that we had never met before, regular people, little old ladies with injuries, and the same thing. It would be that damn bowl with our folded up names, and they would pick a name and say, John, go work with this old lady over here or whatever. You know, whomever it was that was getting chosen, and you would have to teach in front of Jay. And then after it was over, we would all sit down with the client and say, what did you like? What did you not like? And they would leave the room. And then Jay would say what he liked and what he didn't like. So we were under a microscope as far as, you know, learning how to teach for however Jay felt it was appropriate. Carolina, I'll give that to you.
Yes. Então, aí, depois disso, vinha os alunos comuns, né, que eles escolhiam, dependente da idade ou com alguma limitação no corpo, ia lá sortear, falava, John, agora você vai dar aula para essa senhora aqui, e o Jay assistiria, e depois o aluno falava o que gostou da aula e o que não gostou, ia embora, e depois aí o Jay falava, agora eu vou dizer o que eu não gostei ou gostei, né, então isso é uma forma de aprendizado muito grande.
I remember hearing you speak with Sandy Shimoda that you did on your previous interview, talking about the eye, right? The Pilates eye, and being able to see, right? The all-seeing eye. I remember a workshop that was just so amazing that Karen Frischman did with us, where she brought all of us outside and we sat on a bench and we just talked with our notebooks in hand and our pen. And she would, from a block down, say, all right, you see that guy with the black hat, watch him. And when he comes by, make notes. And from that, you need to make notes on what you saw and how you would build a lesson for that person. So these poor people in LA would be walking by, and we'd have this group from all over the world just, and they would walk by and we'd.
Yeah. Notes, yeah.
But then we went back inside and she asked us all what we saw, and everybody saw the same thing. And for the most part, everybody was stewing up the same lesson. So it was a really wonderful moment on eye training. And there's another anecdote to that, but Carolina, I'll let you sum that up and go back into it.
Então ele mencionou da live que foi feita com a Sandy Shimona,
sim.
Né? Você perguntou do
olhar de águia, né? Do olhar.
Como que treina isso, né? Então, ele disse que tinha um workshop com a Carrie, que ela levava eles para fora, para rua, e daí todo mundo sentado ali com o caderninho, anotando, e ela falava assim, agora olha para aquele rapaz ali da camiseta preta, olha ele andar, e começa a anotar, né, como que ele está ali andando e tudo, e depois trazia o pessoal para dentro e comparava essas anotações, porque por mais que fosse, né, ninguém estava se falando ali, o que estavam vendo, quando eles iam checar as anotações, estava praticamente tudo igual, eles viram a mesma coisa, então já estava desenvolvendo esse olhar mais de águia aí.
And I remember then Karen, to top it off, had gone through and filmed people in LA and filmed them walking just like a little spy. And she edited it down. The first clip we watched was 10 seconds. And we, same thing, make your notes. The next clip, 5 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, a half a second. And we had to look in that blink to see what we saw in the body and make a lesson. And once again, wouldn't you know it, the majority of the crew was there really on the same page with their lesson plan. So it was just to see how everybody's instinct and intuition was on the same page there.
Yeah.
Então, aí depois ela trazia vídeos, né, uns clipes de 10 segundos, você tinha que anotar o que você via naquele corpo. Depois diminuía para 5 segundos, para 2 segundos, para 3 segundos. E cada vez meio segundo. E você tinha que ver ali o que aquele corpo precisava e desenvolver uma aula para aquela pessoa. Escrever tudo e, no final, todos os alunos acabavam desenvolvendo uma aula semelhante, porque eles viam a mesma coisa.
So I continued studying with Jay and learning so much out in LA, and then studying with Kathy and assisting her more and more as she developed not only the books that had become so well known and so well revered, and like I said, are like gold, but she also started at that time founding her her Pilates teacher, advanced teacher training program that she has, that so many wonderful folks have gone down. And I started to travel with her a little bit. I was fortunate enough to go out to Chicago to assist her for a Graz conference out there, and totally grateful. Dana Santee, who's amazing and hysterical, was gracious enough to let me sneak into a back room that they had with a setup of studio equipment and teach some of the teachers some privates there, even though I wasn't officially part of the lineup. So that was really cool. And I continued running around with Kathy to Asheville, North Carolina, et cetera, et cetera. The crew from Vintage had me out in Europe a little bit, and all this traveling was great, but I just started getting run down, and my body started not feeling very well at all, and my Pilates started personally declining, my flexibility, my stamina, all of that, which leads me to this next chapter. Carolina, I'll give you the mic again.
Thank you. Yeah, então, dali ele continuou trabalhando com a Kathy, sempre muito próximo. Nas convenções que ela ia, ele sempre estava junto. Por mais que ele não fizesse parte do line para dar aulas na convenção, tinha os outros professores, por exemplo, ele citou o nome da Dana Santee, que ele falou que ela é engraçada. Ela sempre colocava ele numa das salas lá mais afastadas para dar aula para os outros instrutores. E daí por diante ele começou o Vintage também levava ele muito para a Europa para dar aula lá, fazerem coisas lá, e aí ele começou a sentir que estava pegando demais ali, o corpo dele já não estava mais desempenhando como antes era, porque estava limitando flexibilidade, a estamina dele já não estava mais tão animado mais. E daí agora vem a próxima parte.
Yeah,
John. Keep this part. I like this third part. Okay, give me a minute. I know what you. Yeah, about the feeling, the stamina. I in the beginning I feel the same. You know, we have a lot of history about this. So give me 1 minute and go back to the history, because the history it's the same. It's like the same, right? Ok? Então eu disse para ele que nesse momento ele vai tem uma história, uma parte da vida dele que entra agora, né? Eu pedi que ele guardasse um pouquinho, porque é uma história muito parecida com a minha, de certa forma. E antes da gente chegar lá, mantenho no spoiler now, keep it secret. E a Carolina, Nathanael, tinha uma pergunta para a Carolina agora, tá? Wait a minute, John.
Take your time. Take your time. I'm here. I got more tea. I got cookies.
Yeah, I have one.
A pergunta é a seguinte: a Carolina, ela tem algo que a gente pode dizer que para uns é coisa de nerd, mas é bastante raro. Enfim, ela tem um pedaço da parede da casa de Joseph Pilates. É verdade isso? Está aí, fácil não.
Boa pergunta. Não
Tá.
pensava que você ia pedir.
Você não sabe onde está a parede da casa. Não. Que história é essa, Carol? De onde surgiu essa história? O que é que aconteceu? Diz.
Ok, eu tenho sim, eu vou achar em breve. Mas tá ali guardada na minha caixinha de treasure, de tesouro. John, he's asking me about that I have a little piece of Joe Pilates studio, wooden, that comes from the Pilates at the source. You've probably seen with Elaine. Então, eu tenho, porque como eu fui convidada para fazer um trabalho voluntário lá, né, de ser a fotógrafa do evento, então, quando estava lá finalizando o evento, eles me deram essa plaquetinha que está com o meu nome, e é um pedaço, assim, da madeira do estúdio do Joseph, né, antes do Sean Gallagher começar a fazer a reforma, eles tiraram, né, essas madeiras, e tá ali cheio de pinturas, assim, descascando. E a própria Elaine Ewing, que também criou, foi ela que fez essa plaquetinha para mim, ela tem também no estúdio dela. Essa semana ela estava fazendo uma live e ela mostrou, então está lá. Mas eu vou pegar para você ver.
Eu acho que uma plaquetinha, que é um quadrado, né, assim?
Desse tamanho.
Eu acho que se você pegar esse quadrado, pegar um bom marceneiro e dividir... Você fica rica.
Na convenção do né, Pilates at the Pillow, eles tinham lá também, para fazer arrecadação de dinheiro, eles tinham lá um pedaço da janela do Joseph. E a galera compra.
Eu comprar.
Não tem mais como usar nessa janela. So I was telling them, John, that they also have the original piece of Joe's like a window, the frame, the grid, and the glass, and people do buy that because it's history.
Yeah.
It's totally history. It's totally. Carolina's worked with Elaine Ewing a bit here, and Elaine's so amazing. I adore her. She's given me some great deals on Pilates equipment as we've opened our studio. But she's it's a history lesson. She's got that original Cadillac up there and so many other pieces, and they're alive. You touch them, and it's, you know.
The history, yeah. E Carolina, você tem um projeto aí na Flórida também, né? Você tem o seu estúdio dentro da sua casa e tem um projeto online, certo?
Controle.
Sim, o Pilates Controle, ele é um projeto online, né? O estúdio na minha casa eu tenho para mim mesma, né? Na verdade, o Benchmat foi, né? Eu experienciei lá no Jacob's Pillow e eu me apaixonei porque eu senti uma força tão grande de conseguir fazer a minha prática do mat no bench, porque você vê, ele tem os dois handles dele, né, que te ajuda a fazer essas inversões. No caso, para mim, a minha dificuldade maior são as inversões, e o fato desculpa, gente, o fato da perna dele, né, inclinar para um lado e para o outro, ajuda muito em vários trabalhos, como no roll-up, se o teu tronco estiver mais elevado, fica mais fácil de você rolar, ou se você tiver com o tronco mais baixo, fica mais desafiador para subir, né? Então, o Pilates Controle foi o início de uma forma de dividir o meu conhecimento de Pilates, apesar que já tem muita gente com muito conhecimento de Pilates aí, mas eu entendi que eu também posso agregar, né? E a minha intenção é de conseguir espalhar o Pilates para mais pessoas no mundo, né? Por isso que eu decidi fazer online. Esse aí foi no The Pilates School, no estúdio antigo que a gente tinha lá em Massachusetts, com as nossas colegas de trabalho. E agora aqui a gente já montou o estúdio novo físico também.
Uhum. Isso é tudo na sua casa, né?
Esse era na minha casa. Agora é outra casa, eu já mudei, mas era em
aí Sim. Você dá aulas na sua casa mesmo, você tem?
Então, na intenção eu gostaria de dar, mas o que aconteceu? Quando eu montei o estúdio foi bem na época da pandemia, porque eu fui para o Brasil e trouxe a Wonder Chair comigo, acabei trazendo a Armchair comigo também, Spine Corrector, as coisas menores. E aí veio a pandemia, daí eu acabei que nunca dei aula em casa.
Luciana Pauli. Aí lá no Tea Garden do Jacob's Pillow, né, com o Hairdressers, que a gente teve a oportunidade de experimentar, e foi onde eu comecei a conversar com o Nathanael, né, Nathanael? Que eu não fazia no Brasil.
Legal. E essa Wonder Chair?
Yeah, so John I know that's right, John. Então, essa é a Wonder Chair no estúdio da Elaine, em Rhinebeck, no estado de Nova York, que era da Romana e que era do Joe. Essa aí é a original. E, no entanto, que tem até uma plaquetinha ali que diz Universal Reformer. E eu perguntei para ela por que todos os aparelhos dele são considerados Universal Reformer, né? Ele tinha no Benchmat original dele, tem vários outros aparelhos que não é Reformer, ele usava essa plaquinha.
Legal. E aí você fazendo aula com o John.
A Lane Washington, a minha partner, o John, e eu lá no The Pilates School antigo.
Legal.
John is killing me.
You're killing you.
That powerhouse in and out.
Yeah. Everybody together.
E esse aí foi no estúdio do John, right, John? At the Contrology Cohort.
Yes.
Com o Jay.
Yes. This was the weekend that we had at our studio this last fall. We are fortunate enough to have one of the new Jay Grimes reformers that Balance Body has made in just tandem with him and Sandy Shimoda and Karen Frischman. Karen Frischman has a degree from Rhode Island School of Design in furniture design, and she's very savvy, especially about the springs. She's done so much research. So they painstakingly, if you're not familiar with it, really put together kind of the feel of his old reformer. Very similar, I think, in the mission statement of what Gratz did with the archival reformer. We're a little ambassador. Stop by the Contrology Cohort if you're in New York. Jump on the machine.
Reforma. Então, esse curso foi com o Jay, quando ele estava lançando o Reforma Arcaico, né, do Contrology, que eles reproduziram do Jay, e foi muito bacana. É uma sensação maravilhosa a Reforma.
John, so in the end of the history, but not the end, you discover a health problem, right? Então, ele descobriu problema de saúde retornando lá naquela parte.
As Pilates teachers, we're so in touch with our body, right? I think things that maybe don't bother other people are just weird signs, whether it's just a crack of the knee that typically doesn't happen when you do a move or whatever. So I knew something was up. But Kathy's a genius, and she would be able to get me maybe out of pain by stretching enough or whatever. So we couldn't really figure what was going on. I went out, I remember the last seminar that I was present for at Vintage Pilates. It was weird. One day I would be crippled, and one day I'd be doing a high bridge on the Wunda chair, back up and over with no problem. So before the last seminar weekend was set up, maybe June of 2016, shortly before that, a month or two before, I ended up going in to get a checkup with my doctor. And I discovered that after having survived cancer once in 2011, unfortunately, 5 years later, the big C had returned. And I was sick. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer at that point. Bum, bum, bum. Carolina, why don't you translate? And I can briefly go into that journey and where I'm at now since then.
Okay, yeah. Então, infelizmente, ele estava sentindo essas dores no corpo e estavam persistindo e ele não conseguia entender de onde estava vindo, né? E trabalhando com a Kathy, ela tentava fazer com que ele se alongasse um pouco mais profundamente, não pegasse tão pesado, e eles não estavam entendendo o que estava acontecendo. Só que era assim, cada dia era diferente, né? Às vezes ele estava lá num dia em super performance, fazendo um hybrid na Wunda Chair, e no outro dia ele estava se arrastando, se sentindo péssimo, não conseguia fazer nada. Até que daí ele foi fazer um check-up no médico e, infelizmente, ele já estava com um câncer no estágio, 4º estágio já, sendo que ele já tinha sobrevivido um câncer em 2011, já.
So I, of course, put down my work and became a cancer patient. And I'm grateful to say I survived a summer of hardcore chemotherapy, lost my hair, all of that. It was tough, but thank God for Pilates. I was the crazy patient in the hospital doing my mat work in my bed and dragging my IVs into the hallway to do the ballet stretches from the ladder barrel or whatever on the banister in the hallway. And in fact, I had a physician doing rounds walk by me and give me the side eye and kind of continue on. And he stopped and he doubled back and said, I just want to let you know that I think that you may indeed be like the most active patient on these entire 14 floors of this hospital. So thank God for Pilates, because it gave me strength and the willpower to be able to go somewhere else when the going got tough, during treatment, to climb back to a return to health, right? Here, as Joe Pilates wrote about. So, Carolina, I'll give that to you. And then shortly after, that's when I met Carolina, after I was getting better. Yeah, she's a bit of sunshine that really, has been present and wonderful and helpful here as I come back.
Então, aí ele acabou, deixando o trabalho dele de lado e foi cuidar da saúde dele, foi ser internado no hospital. E ele falou que graças ao Pilates ele teve a oportunidade de manter o corpo dele ativo, né? Ele fazia o mat work dele na própria cama e ele começava a andar no hospital carregando o soro dele com ele e imitava os ballet stretches, colocar a perna mais elevada. E o médico que passou e olhou assim por ele meio de canto, e daí voltou e falou assim: você sabe que você é a pessoa mais ativa aqui nesse hospital com mais de 14 andares. que eu já vi. Então, ele disse que graças a isso ele conseguiu manter, né, essa força de vontade de conseguir se superar e manter o corpo dele ativo também.
Ele fazia 100 na cama, que ele disse, né? You're doing the 100 on the bed, right?
I was doing the 100 on the bed. I was doing leg circles. I was doing a small little bit of series of 5, some pre-Pilates, shoulder bridges, spine stretch, just whatever because you're lying in bed the whole time. So I would need to move. And, so much of recovery, I think, is flushing out that cancer from your body as the chemotherapy slowly melts it away. And so much of that is your lymph system. And your lymph system has no heartbeat. It relies on your muscles and your joints to quote Clara Pilates, to juice it out and to move it through and eliminate it. So, not only just so I could feel better, I felt compelled to continue kind of working my body, even though as the summer went on, it was harder and harder and harder as the toxicity levels of the treatment built up. Carolina, I'll give that to you.
Uhum. Então ele continuou mesmo fazendo o 100, fazendo todo o mat dele, e era o que deixava ele ativamente, e por mais que o tratamento estava consumindo, né, a energia dele, e ele estava se sentindo cada vez mais fraco, ele continuou seguindo essa filosofia da contrologia, né, e ele lembrava da Clara Pilates falando juice it out, espreme um pouco mais e vai, e continua fazendo, né.
So, I'm grateful that I survived. And after that summer, Sloan Kettering here in New York City truly saved my life. They're amazing, those physicians there. And so I, at that point, realized that I couldn't be 5 million places at once. And sadly had to let Kathy know that I didn't feel comfortable assisting her really within the training programs anymore. And I needed to pare back. My energy resources were gone, and I needed to kind of be a baby again without any responsibility. So that more or less is when we really stopped professionally tangoing so intimately. And so many of my peers are nailing it now in really a lot of the positions that I used to with her. And so I really stepped back and stopped traveling and stopped teaching as much as I did. And started going back to what used to make me happy when I was younger, and it was all of this type of stuff, the music and everything. So yeah, Carolina, why don't you, and then we'll figure out how we rendezvoused and met.
Exactly. Então, aí a partir disso ele, né, deu uma parada, teve que parar nas viagens, e foi onde ele acabou se desvinculando da Kathy, no sentido de que ele não foi mais trabalhar com ela intensivamente nos workshops, viajando, tudo, porque ele sentiu que ele tinha que voltar às origens, como se fosse ser uma criança de novo e não ter mais responsabilidades. Então, ele voltou à música, a se dedicar mais à música e para ele mesmo.
So as I slowly started getting back into it, I was no longer teaching workshops or traveling, but a client that I had worked with years before this, named Jerry Haran, she's just business maven, flies all over the world, and does a lot of work in marketing and hotels, if I remember correctly. She had some herniated discs that she was really suffering from. And we worked very closely together and got her out of pain. And I think I'm proud to say still to this day, she's out of pain and she's able to live her life and be wonderful. And her best friend, the godmother, I believe, of her son, happens to be this woman, Lynn Wilkinson, that runs the Pilates school that Carolina works so intimately with. So once again, just, who you know and how it's all connected. Lynn reached out and said, I really want you to start coming up to teach my teachers. And I happened to be traveling. They were in Cape Cod. Now they're in Florida, of course, up towards Cape Cod for a vacation with my family. And just said, sure, let's give it a whirl. And started presenting regularly, quarterly, I believe, for the first year or so at the studio with Carolina and the girls. And Carol and I just immediately clicked. I mean, as you guys know, her work is just, it's like a fine wine. It's beautiful. She just, the more she goes along and ages, the better she gets. And the way her body has changed and how passionate she is about it. And now how she's bringing all of us together. It's really beautiful to kind of continue to play with her here. So, Carol, I'll let you translate and talk about how beautiful you are.
Thank you. Então, o Jon sempre é muito gentil. Mas foi através de uma aluna dele que estava com problema de costas, nas costas, né? Com discos, era muita dor. A Geraldine, ela é muito amiga da Lynn, que é a minha boss-chefe, né? Como eu chamo, mas agora é minha colleague and partner. E ela falou do Jon para Lynn, né? Você poderia começar a levá-lo para fazer aula aí para as suas instrutoras. E foi o que aconteceu, porque a gente estava em busca de um mentor, mas no ciclo que a gente estava vivendo ali não estava fácil. A gente mora a gente morava 1h30 de Boston, e ali em Boston não tinha alguém que a gente queria mais se vincular daquele tipo de trabalho, e daí apareceu o Jon pra gente, e ele ia lá 3 vezes, 4 vezes no ano, treinar a gente o fim de semana inteiro, refinando a nossa prática. Foi muito bom. É uma conexão atrás da outra, né? Um amigo vai vinculando com o outro, e ele falou que daí agora eu estou vinculando ele com vocês aqui, que é muito gratificante essa oportunidade.
And Jon, the Pilates have this way of connect all together. You know, eu disse que o Pilates tem essa capacidade de conectar todo mundo, né? Of course, it's not about ego. It's about simplicity and love and passion for the system, for the method, for the work. You know, the work, it's really return to life.
You nailed it.
True.
Yeah, eu disse que o trabalho tem essa capacidade de juntar todos nós, lógico, sem ego, com humildade, com simplicidade, né? E o que trabalho é realmente um retorno à vida, né? Cada um entra no método pelo seu retorno à vida. Everyone has your return to life, your history. Yeah, everybody has your history. Nathanael tem a história dele, Carol tem a dele, Jon tem a dele, eu tenho a minha história. E no final da conta, todo mundo se conecta aqui através do sistema, né? Como se o sistema fosse o fio condutor, né? The system is the conductor for all of us. You know?
Absolutely. It's a return to humanity and just, you know, the key to life, you know, and everlasting loot and happiness and all of that. I go back to the inscription that Joe Pilates wrote in his books. And I believe he inscribed the same thing to every book that he wrote. And I think it was everlasting youth to you and yours through contrology. And that's what it really is about, you know, being able to live your life and make it through whatever it is, whether it's cancer, as we were talking about, or right now, this pandemic that we're all dealing with as a globe. And I think that Pilates is just such a gift right now that we can all, in so many ways, really just revel in. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Nathanael, tem alguma pergunta?
Eu queria saber da Carol sobre o projeto novo dela, físico, né? Ou seja, ela se mudou de cidade, ela era, acredito que contratada, como ela falou aí da boss, contratada e agora é sócia. Então, acho que com os novos equipamentos. Então, como é que está sendo essa realidade em plena pandemia?
Ok. Bom, realmente foi uma surpresa, né? Porque a gente estava planejando já há anos essa conversa de mudar aqui para o sul dos Estados Unidos para poder... Aonde a gente estava é um lugar maravilhoso, mas é muito turístico, então é só, tipo assim, agora, julho e agosto praticamente, talvez junho ali tenha uma população maior. Depois disso, é uma população mais idosa, no qual alguns têm dinheiro para fazer pilates e os outros não têm condições nem de viver direito, então é complicado. Então, estava muito fechado. Então, a gente queria ir para uma comunidade maior, onde tinha gente mais jovens, não só jovens, mas que fosse mais ativo. Então, ela mudou para cá primeiro, e eu vim para cá visitar, e eu amei. St. Petersburg é uma cidade maravilhosa, ao lado de Tampa, e é praticamente uma ilha também, mas é grande. E aqui ela falou, olha, eu já achei um lugar para montar o estúdio, eu quero que você venha comigo. Eu já estava como gerente lá do estúdio dela, lá em Massachusetts, e já estava praticamente cuidando do estúdio, né? Ela foi... Ano passado eu fiquei cuidando o ano inteiro, ela ficou lá só um mês. Então, aí eu decidi mudar, e foi uma coisa muito boa, porque foi na hora certa da mudança em si que eu precisava sair de Massachusetts em questão da casa que eu morava. Coincidiu com a pandemia, infelizmente. Mas antes disso, a gente já tinha planejado em desfazer dos equipamentos que a gente tinha na época do Pique Pilates. A gente estava querendo ficar com o formato mais clássico possível. O Pique é muito bom, os aparelhos são maravilhosos, mas, assim, eu estava sentindo que a gente precisava de uma necessidade mais pura, sabe? Então, aí, como eu fui no Brasil, tive a oportunidade de ir até aqui Pilates, né? Graças ao Natanael, ele me linkou lá, me fez o contato com o Rafael e fui na fábrica, comprei a minha onda da Equipe Pilates, eu amei, gostei de todo mundo, participei do Equipe Pilates TV também. Ali começou a surgir uma outra parceria, né? Que se você clicar lá, parceria forte no Google, né? Aparece o Move e o Equipe Pilates, é muito engraçado. Mas aí disso eu conversei com a Lin, né? Com a minha sócia, e daí a gente chegou à conclusão que seria, então, bacana poder exportar esses equipamentos do Brasil, que era conveniente, eu falei que a qualidade era muito boa e que a gente iria se surpreender. E chegaram os equipamentos maravilhosos, estão lá com o estúdio lindo. O que a gente deu a oportunidade de fazer, como o estúdio é grande, a gente pegou 4 aparelhos de cada, assim, dos menores, né, e só um Cadillac, uma guilhotina, mas enfim, os menores a gente tem 4 de cada, a gente pôde separar em cantos. Então são 4 cantos separados.
Exato.
Aqui em inglês a gente fala pods. E aí, essas estações, no qual a gente vai tentar começar agora a trabalhar fisicamente com os alunos, mesmo que seja 2 professores, um em cada canto, então a gente vai ter aquela separação de distância necessária, né, que precisa. Vamos ter que trabalhar com máscaras. Essa semana a gente começou a dar algumas aulas, mas no momento a gente só está dando aula para as pessoas que a gente conhece, que a gente convive, porque infelizmente o número aqui está muito alto.
Entendi.
Do Covid.
Eu tenho uma pergunta, uma última pergunta, na verdade, que a gente tá longe. John, I have the one question, the last question. The question is on the beginning of the live, but I can put the question at the end. So, a friend
do Everton.
Do Everton. Tem uma pergunta aqui do Everton. Everton diz que the Jay Grimes work with articulation. It's not block the articulation on the work. You know, the articulations are no block. Release the tensions and keep the work to the center, always to the center. What do you think about this vision of the work? It's not on the articulation. It's always put in there on the center. You know what I say?
Okay, let's see here. Let me see if I understand the question correctly. So to rephrase, just to make sure I'm on the same page, Jay is so pro in his word that Pilates is the strong center and the two-way stretch, correct?
Yeah.
Right? And maybe not as much about some of the fanfare going on with the rest of the body. Carolina, do I understand that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting. When I first started studying, how can I make this as succinct as possible? When I first started studying Pilates as a dancer, and as a dancer, it's so much about this, that, whatever the individual little thing is, whether it's the hand positions or all the other little stuff going on. I think I trained Pilates a little bit more in that way, perhaps when I first started. And so Jay, the beauty of him is figuring out how can all of these little things connect down through there so that I can actually feel what I'm doing with my pinky rooted down through into the center. Jay talks anatomically, right, about how the arms root through into the lats all the way down into that midsection of the back. And then if you look at the musculature of the leg, it crosses up over the pelvis, up over the, into that iliac crest of the low back. So everything just goes through there. So I think the best way I can say that is Jay does teach a lot of kind of maybe some of the more frilly things here and there, perhaps with some articulation or some more fanfare. But I think he's such a stickler that if it's not coming from a place that's connected connected to that center, he's not interested in seeing it. And that's why I think I value him in so much, and that he was able to connect, I think, the sense of moving from my stomach within some of the more advanced exercises that I was taught originally, that I would maybe just muscle through because I was flexible enough and strong enough from years of dancing to make the shapes, right? Which can kind of fake someone out. So I don't know. Does that answer the question, do you think, a little there, Carolina? Is there anything else I can add?
I think I like it. What do you thought?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. So I think just really distilling it down to, a well-organized center. And then from there, you can do anything you want because it's protected. You've got the leverage. And circling back to that picture that you showed of me doing the neck stretcher at Rehab at Brooke Seiler's studio, I finished up with that. And you saw Jay giving this look down his eyes at me, like, what is he doing? And this is before we really knew each other. I mean, now he's a Pilates teacher, but now he's more just a friend and a mentor in life, especially with his theatrical past and mine and all of that. There's so many wonderful lessons. But that first time there, when we had really truly met at that Rehab workshop, he looked down his glasses and he said, You're skinny as a bird, but you're strong as an ox. And that's what Pilates is about, is how can you connect into that center so you find the strength, even though I don't have the biggest biceps or the shoulders that, some of these other men that come to the work have. I'm still able then to execute the headstands and things like that because it's coming from a well-connected place. So, it's all the same at the end of the day. I really think Jay and Romana and Kathy and everybody else, they're all teaching the same thing, as we all are. But it's just finding your voice and how can you impart it into that. So it's our common language, Yeah. So it's brought us all together here. So cheers to that,
Yeah, cheers. Ele disse que no final das contas todo mundo ensina. Ensina o mesmo, né, Carol? O que faz a gente se unir.
Né? A gente
exatamente, né? Ele falou que o Joe ensinava pelo... se você tiver um centro forte, você consegue se manter conectado, né? Algo assim, né? Eu não lembro
tudo parte do centro.
Tudo parte do centro.
Mexendo o braço ou a perna, tem que partir do centro. Ele não quer ver ao que você está mexendo, sim, iniciando o movimento, né? Então, eu acho que explicou bem a pergunta, assim. Então, é esse centro forte e, sim, então, é o two-way stretch, né? Que vem do centro para as extremidades, mas tem que partir do centro. E por mais que o John, ele um dia falou para o John que o John era magro, mas forte igual aço, porque... que ele não aparenta ser forte, ele é forte porque ele sabe de onde partir o movimento, né? Iniciar esse movimento. Então, não precisa mostrar que é forte, né? Tem que
exato.
Saber, tem habilidade.
Exatamente. Chegamos a quase 2 horas de live.
Mas eu tenho um pedido antes de terminar.
Diga, Nathanael.
Se o John desde que eu vi aí, eu digo, esse cara, ele deve tocar divinamente. Será que dá para ele dar uma palhinha de alguma coisa aí? Não sei se tem algum instrumento pequeno. É uma pergunta. Aí ele tentaria, sei lá, no seu clarinete, talvez, não sei. Enquanto Carol dava o seu final, ele preparava alguma coisa para tocar.
Igual
quem sabe?
TV, né?
Perguntando. Não tem nada programado, gente, tá? Mas...
Carol,
brasileiro, né? Então, Nathanael is asking you to see if you're able to play some music for us to finish with the...
Oh, Lord.
O Eric, diga a ele que o Eric Karlovic tocou aqui, tocou frevo, música brasileira, mas não precisa ser isso, mas enfim, quem sabe aí, não sei.
Kind of you can play just to be the grand finale for us.
Oh my God. I wish I had something prepared. Oh, no.
Primeiro concerto para a população do Brasil aqui. Primeira vez que vai tocar para os brasileiros.
That's so fun. You know what I do want to do as we talk about this, maybe not tonight, but sometime soon. I was on the phone with Sandy Shimoda about this and also Jay Grimes. And I said, how fun would it be to put together an evening, something like this on YouTube or Zoom or whatever, where we find people with these backgrounds of music or dance, like Noam up in Canada, or our friend Dina Drotar, who has such an amazing voice. And we just put together a Pilates variety hour. So I've talked to a couple different people about it. And now that I have your information, I'm going to make sure that you're there for this evening of song and revelry. Absolutely. Absolutely. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. Watch this space.
Ok.
E uma noite no qual tem essa variedade de professores de Pilates, mas que também tem outros talentos, né? Reunindo a Sandy Shimona, o Jay Grimes. But Jon, you didn't tell us. Are you playing anything for us? We're not gonna let you go without playing anything.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I know. But I will. I mean, we did always leave kind of vintage Pilates every time we were leaving the room, because there were so many wild, just kooky, crazy music theater actors of past and present that were in and out of there in Los Angeles. So at least once a day, you'd hear people singing, so long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, adieu, adieu, adieu to you and you and you. So, I mean, we just had, it was fun. But I will. Tonight, I'll leave you with that little taste, un poquito. And we'll definitely, the world needs connectivity. It needs good coffee talk like this. And it needs celebration right now, because, you know, it's hard for everybody. So, I'm sorry to leave you without anything other than that.
Ok, obrigado.
Okay. Um gostinho só de quero mais, né? Então, Natanael, fica para a próxima. Porque ele está preparado dessa vez.
Vamos organizar o encontro na próxima. Obrigado. Carol, obrigado realmente por você estar aqui. Um prazer enorme. A gente vai se ver em breve, Carol. Temos uma outra convidada especial. Carol vai estar aqui também. Com a gente. Jon, I have to say thank you so much to be here. It's a privilege. Thank you again. And I hope to see you in New York.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I look forward to the time when we can all get through this. And I do. I have hope. I think that we can definitely survive, you know, all of it and get back to just fun and spreading the word. So cheers. I look forward to much more, you guys. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And hopefully we can meet here in St. Petersburg at the Pilates school all together, right? Get a Brazilian.
There we go.
Here with Jon.
Junto na Carol, exatamente.
Obrigada pelo convite, pela oportunidade. Me sinto muito grata. Natanael, eu trago o pedacinho para você na próxima, que está lá no estúdio. Eu levei para lá, mas eu trago na próxima vez, tá bom?
Beleza.
Daniel, obrigada. Quinta-feira temos mais uma live na quinta e uma live especial que vai ser no sábado. Não vai ser domingo, porque domingo é Dia dos Pais aqui no Brasil, né?
Isso.
Então a gente vai fazer uma live no sábado. Já deixo de antemão que vai ser a Gloria Gaspari on the Saturday, Jon. Gloria Gaspari e Amanda Casagrande do Grifo. E na quinta-feira vamos falar em breve. E temos uma com a Carol novamente, com a Elaine Wing. Ok?
2 semanas?
Exatamente, com as 2 semanas mais ou menos. Depois temos mais agendadas e por aí vai, vamos nos comunicando. Thank you, Jon, again. It's an honor.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
Thank you. Carol, obrigada mais uma vez. Natanael, obrigado a todo mundo que ficou aqui. Essa live está salva, vai ficar salva lá, tá? Todo mundo pode assistir depois.
Batemos o recorde hoje.
Batemos o recorde. Depois o YouTube deixa tudo traduzido para quem perdeu alguma coisa. Fica lá quando salva, fica traduzido automaticamente, né? Não é uma tradução perfeita, mas é aquela tradução do YouTube que ajuda bastante. Então, obrigado a todo mundo. Tenham todos uma boa noite. Have a good night, Jon. Thank you again. Be safe. E tchau todo mundo. Até a próxima, hein?